Yellow, yellow. It's your boy Larry No here. Now we're going to be talking about education, so let's jump right in. So, education can easily be seen as the growth serum of the mind. If you compared your mind to a capsule dino, right, and put it in a bowl of fresh education, it's going to expand. Now, you get your occasional droplets of knowledge here and there, but an entire tub of education just waiting to be soaked up is going to transform you into an entirely different being. Now, unfortunately, many people try to charge for such a necessity. They might even make it seem like a luxury to you, or make you feel like you aren't deserving of it, or that you have to prove yourself for it. But you don't, and you shouldn't, especially for the things that you're actually interested in. This is why education deserves to be free or extremely discounted. Now, you guys could burn me at the stake if you wanted, crucify me, bury me at sea, alive. But people who desire more knowledge simply out of interest shouldn't have to struggle for it. Public education is disjointed and inconsistent, to say the least anyways. The cost of higher education is the equivalent to putting a book in a jail cell. And here you are paying for him to get out when he shouldn't be in there in the first place. But here's the catch. In order for you to bail him out, you have to check yourself into the jail for a few years. And then eventually, there's gonna come a time where he's released. And you just sit there, watching him from your jail cell window, lost as to how the predicament unfolded in the first place. Since knowledge catalyzes civil growth, society could evolve in a more moral and understanding direction. Now, of course, there are going to be outliers to this, and that's a given for any theory though. But similarly, our strengths could be capable of upholding the weaknesses of others and vice versa. Truth is, we don't live in a society, we live in a company. The federal government, to be exact. Workers, income, company policy, they work more out of self-interest than for the workers. They don't really trust you to make decisions for the company. If we use the example of a building to describe our country, we can see them located on the top floor, and we can see us living about 5 floors down from them. They're usually up there celebrating, doing what they want, when they want. Meanwhile, there's a multitude of leaks and maintenance issues on our floor, toilets and raccoons in the closet. We send letters up to HR, then everyone gets excited like, guys, they're sending someone, it's going to be okay, just be patient. I just sent a letter, it's official. I put a stamp on it. But then they just reply with some beautifully BS'd response, which you could optimistically accept. Then you put your ear really close to the elevator shaft, which is out of service, by the way, and you can just faintly hear the sounds of them not caring at all. Then you got the business lobbyists who live a few floors up, and they slip notes and money upstairs to get maintenance assistance specifically designed for the businesses that live underneath them. Speaking of lobbying, it's okay when you have a group of moms who just lost their children to drunk drivers pushing for laws that ensure the safety of other children. But when you have huge businesses like the tobacco industry investing millions of dollars into political campaigns with the intention to stunt the growth of bills that inhibit the accessibility of the masses to a destructive substance, it kind of makes you think, who is really being prioritized when the laws are being passed? It doesn't matter what your business is. If it negatively impacts people, it should be limited and restricted to the highest degree. All government should act with virtue, but unfortunately, vices seem to continuously find their way in. Additionally, loans enable many people to go to school, which is great, and some people even find a craft or a side job or a way to pay it off before they graduate, sometimes even after they graduate. But there is a vast majority of those who cannot pay them off, or end up working way longer than they should to pay them off. With that in mind, let's consider a few definitions. One of slavery's many definitions is a condition compared to that of a slave in respect of exhausting labor or restricted freedom. Now, if we dive a bit deeper, we can see that freedom is defined as the state of not being subject to or affected by a particular undesirable thing. Then if we think about how long it would take the average person to work their way out of student loan debt, with all things considered, it's difficult to say that an individual's freedom isn't being encroached upon due to them being in an almost constant state of being affected by that particular undesirable thing. Some could say that they chose to bring that upon themselves. And although that's partially true, at what cost does structured learning come at? When you consider how much formal schooling it'd take to pay off the lowest tier of higher education in a reasonable amount of time, it makes you think, how much freedom does one have to sacrifice before betterment shifts into complacency? Conversely, we have those who encourage children to do whatever it takes to get into and through school. Imagine the human spirit as a sentient glob of clay. As the human grows, their clay shifts into different things. The people who prioritize college and degrees as a requirement to make a decent living have their clay in the form of a snake. And not just any snake, a blindfolded snake. One that sabotages its own kind without even knowing it. I'm not gonna blame these people for the outcome, but they do play a rather vital role in the way things turn out. Because after armies of these miseducated blindfold snakes preach their truth to the children, eventually the children begin to see degrees and money as synonyms. Knowledge becomes so shrouded in money that it eventually loses its value. And I'm not referring to any material or monetary value, but just the inherent well-being that comes with knowing how to approach different situations. A lot of smoke and mirrors is done to cover the inherent value of knowledge. Also, have you ever seen like MacGyver or Lemony Snicket's Series of Unfortunate Events, or even Matilda? Like, these are some slightly exaggerated but fundamentally true messages regarding how valuable knowledge is. There will never be enough tools in the world to substitute anything that you've already learned about. However, I'd like to make it known that, you shouldn't shoot carrots at your big brother with your mind. And if you do, please film it like the movie Chronicle. That movie was amazing, from the shaky cam style to the plot to the powers. I meant, you can turn things that don't have value into things that do have value, all by knowing the right things about the wrong things. Still, we're just specks on specks, next to specks, within specks, around specks, transforming into different specks. Like Whoville. Nevertheless, you can turn things that the majority of people wouldn't value into things of value, just by knowing things. Back in the 70s, if you had a degree, you was big pimping. You had the car, the wife, the kids, the house, and your job makes sure you brought home all the monies for your household. Now with inflation playing a role in education's value, more people have these degrees, which you think would be a good thing, but unfortunately all this did was raise the standard, which subsequently raised the price tag and devalued the knowledge itself. Many of you are familiar with the American military and all that it has accomplished, but here's an idea. Once again, promise me, no crucifixion, but what if we took 1/3 of the military budget and put it towards educating our youth in whatever field they chose to immerse themselves in? We could have it allocated strictly towards tuition, maybe even room and board in some cases. Then we could leave all other expenses to be figured out by the student through grants, scholarships, out-of-pockets, and as a last resort, loans. This would create space for the young to learn about whatever suits their interests and become adept in their field. Furthermore, this would create more passion-based learning opposed to market-based learning, which isn't even really learning because it's just being done to fulfill a specific need or desire of an occupational market trend. Instead of, this market is open, I'm getting a job here. My uncle told me many people with this degree are being hired currently, so I'm going to get that degree with hopes to do the same. It's more like, you know what? I really love bricks. I really do. So I went to school for masonry, and now I'm a brick, and I love it. Not only that, but I get the chance to teach others how to be and place bricks too. You get people who are more invigorated by what they do. Way more careers and way less jobs. My 6th grade math teacher had a degree in law. He was capable of going into a courtroom and defending a client with valid certifications. These two fields have no correlation with each other. Where is the equal sign? We have always had a greater than or less than sign, but where's the equal then? Or equal, the equal to. maybe I should have been an English major. I'm not sure what his intent going into college was or what he wanted to become when he graduated, but certainly becoming a middle school math teacher couldn't have possibly been within his top 15 jobs that he would have after graduating law school. Now, it seems sensible. You've got your knowledge and you've got your war. One of these deserves way more attention than the other. Don't get me wrong, defense is important. I've played enough games of Civ Revolution to know that pursuing knowledge alone is the best way to get ransacked and ravaged. But with everything in moderation, we all end up in new locations. Dr. Seuss would be very proud of that line. Although everyone down talks America, many places admire our pop culture. America's like that cool kid in high school. He's a class clown, doesn't play by the rules, and always has a presence in every conflict. Failing his classes, doesn't do a single thing that contributes to his future. But the swag that kid carries himself with is the target of envy. The ability to brush off others and do what you think is best is an admirable trait, to say the least. Of course, this isn't right when you have kids in cages, but the principle is nice to think about. He's got all eyes on him, and his confidence, mostly arrogance, and his ability to graduate despite his many flaws is a level of self-trust that we all want to have. But the message here is, how different do you think the whole school would be if we took this kid aside and we tutored him, gave him the proper mindset, structure that was clearly lacking in his upbringing? Now, of course, many are going to make fun of him because this kid can be simply ridiculous. But the ramifications of getting him to do the right thing instead of doing his thing would be grand. And if America is going to constantly wave the banner that represents freedom, maybe more access to higher knowledge without crippling consequences would be the way to truly embrace that virtue. I'd like to thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe if you felt this was deserving of a liking and subscribing. I love you all. I'll see you on the next video. If you want me to. I'm pretty bad at goodbyes.